It might sound extremely weird, especially for people who haven't done drugs or experienced anything of the sort, but yeah, so if you've ever seen like The Matrix, where they wake up and they're in those eggshell chairs and stuff, I've done things like that, and been surrounded by doctors and nurses that are like, okay, you need to do this now, and they do weird things and that I can't explain, but then I come back to this realm, I'm like, huh, that worked. I feel better than I did going there, and I don't know if it's because that's what my body needs, because I know that nobody here can fix it, so I have to go somewhere else to get it fixed, but it works.
Hello, hello. Welcome back to Ketamine Connections. My name is Anna Kristal. I'm your ketamine coach, and beyond anything, I'm so happy you're here. So thank you for coming back to the show. Thank you for everyone who has left reviews. And if you have it in your heart to leave a quick review, that would be so helpful. So thank you for doing that. Today's episode, okay, where do I even begin? Let's begin with episode 29. So episode 29, I interviewed Kristen Johnson of Mountain View Clinical Research in Denver, Colorado. From the moment I met this woman, she is just an incredible powerhouse. And if you have not listened to episode 29, go back and listen to it so you can get to know her a little bit. So today's episode is with her standout client, Kevin VanHeesch. And Kevin is someone who, at the age of 22, completely out of nowhere, stepped on a curb, incurred an injury that went on to impact the rest of his life. I mean, honestly, it still impacts him to this day. And what happened through that injury is that he acquired what is called CRPS. Complex regional pain syndrome. We talk about it in the show in episode 29. Go back and revisit it because this episode is more about Kevin's experience with it. It completely changed his life overnight. He went from being outdoorsy and, enjoying things like being outside and camping and things that used to bring him joy to then being literally bedridden 4 years. It took multiple years for doctors to even acknowledge that anything was wrong with him. They really minimized his experience and were not accommodating. And when he did get the diagnosis of complex regional pain syndrome, there was very little that they did for him. Kevin's life was completely impacted. And until he found ketamine, which the story of how he wandered into Kristen's clinic because he was already in the building trying to connect with another clinic, like all of this is so kismet. He talks about his experience with CRPS. He talks about how powerful ketamine healing has been for him. He talks about so many things. He was so generous with his time and his sharing. He talked about how some ketamine journeys are one way and others are another. And to have that feedback from someone who has worked with psychedelics, that is what we want to bring more on this show. So Kevin is one of client stories that we hope to share. If you would like to come on the show and share your client story, then please, I encourage you to submit your story. We have all of that in the show notes. Reach out. We would love to feature more client stories. And here's how fascinating this conversation was for me. And by the way, I listened to hundreds of ketamine stories. Like I've listened to so many, they never get old. And this one hit on something that is rare. You'll hear it in the episode. And something that I nerd out about is these supernatural experiences. And Kevin shared that in the story. And as soon as we stopped record, I had a whole list of more questions. I was bombarded and I thought, how did I not ask all of these other questions about these supernatural experiences that Kevin is having with ketamine? So I shot him an email and I said, Kevin, I gotta know. And so there's a few questions that I followed up with. I don't want to put them in the intro because they might be a spoiler alert to the episode. So we're going to put them in the end of the episode. So listen to the episode. And if you have questions, just know that they might be at the end of the show. If you have more questions after that, let me know because the supernatural elements that Kevin shares in the show are like things that bring me to life. So without further ado, let's dive into the episode. I'm so excited you're here and let's get into Ketamine Connections. Allow me to interrupt myself real quick with a side note that could change your whole ketamine journey. I have been getting feedback from listeners like you that the podcast is helping you feel more prepared, grounded, and confident about your ketamine journey. And if a free episode can do that, just imagine how supported you could feel with a full ketamine preparation system. Because the truth is, following a preparation protocol is the best way to feel safe in your first ketamine journey. Unfortunately, most clinics don't actually know how to set you up for a life changing experience. And that's okay. Their job is to execute, not prepare. But after years of working one on one with clients, I know you deserve better. That's why I created the Ketamine Preparation Protocol, a proven system built from everything I've learned to help people feel confident, calm, and clear heading into your sessions. After completing the beta round, one client told me, "This got me thinking about my journey in a whole new way, and even asking the clinic better questions." Whether you're getting ready for your first journey or realizing now that you want to approach your next one differently, the system was made for you. It can support you before, during, and even retroactively after your sessions to help create real change. Head to the link in the show notes to learn more and to join KPP today. All right, let's get back into the episode. All right, we're live. Welcome, Kevin VanHeesch. So happy that you're here. Uh, we start off every interview in the same way. If you can go back and tell the you before any of this, anything, what would you tell them?
Um, it's gonna be a wild ride. Hold on, and you really don't know what to expect on the days coming. So just go with the roll or go with the flow.
Totally. And then that was also, we were talking before we hit record. So which you are you talking to? Are you talking about you? Yeah, which version of yourself are you talking about?
Kind of all of them, every one of them before the injury to after the injury, and then during all of the therapies I had tried, um, after getting the stimulator, and then same with when I started doing the ketamine infusions. None of it was what you could expect. You can try to prepare for it, but you won't be able to, and that's okay.
Amazing. Um, so why don't you tell us a little bit, because we got connected because you're a very special case. You are using ketamine for centralized regional pain syndrome, and maybe people listening don't know what that is. So can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah, so CRPS, or it used to be known as RSD, it's a chronic nerve pain. It's like neuropathy on steroids. Um, you're just always hurting. It's a very rare, or not rare, but it's not common, and it can just show up randomly from the most minimal situations or things, and can change your life a lot.
And so how does it come on? Because from you, I'm hearing that there was an accident. What are other ways that people kind of get the onset of it?
Yeah, so for me, it wasn't even an accident or anything. I was just walking and I stepped up
Oh,
onto a curb. The ball of
whoa,
my foot popped out of place, and
whoa.
over the next few months, it just developed into severe, never ending pain. Um, I've heard stories of people, a book fell off a shelf and that caused it. Yeah, it's unfortunately never really cool stories to go with it. It's always very basic things that you would never consider anything like that happening to. And then it's just there.
So, question then, is the CRPS linked to your ball of foot falling out of place, or was it there lingering? Like I'm just so confused because it is nerve pain, right?
Yeah, it is nerve pain. They really don't know what causes it.
Hmm.
The injury started it more than likely, and then at one point I had been immobilized in a cast, which more than likely didn't help. Um, Once I got out of the cast, I became non-weight bearing for 7 years almost. So it was
Whoa.
severe. Yeah.
Okay. So I think I read some maybe in the Google Doc that this happened in 2016. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay.
In
So
September.
yeah, September 2016, you step up onto a curb, the ball of your foot pops out, which is not something I even knew could happen until this moment. And then it just leads to endless pain. I mean, the pain ended, but many years later, but it just leads to a lot of pain. And when Kristen and I spoke, she mentioned that this pain is like off the charts. It's not like on the pain scale that most medical professionals use, it's like so far off of there even.
Yeah, well, and that's one thing is the pain hasn't ended. I still suffer daily from it. I receive ketamine infusions every about 6 to 8 weeks to reduce the pain and get it back to a more manageable level.
Mm.
But it's a very severe, possibly lifelong pain that you just slowly learn to manage and deal with.
Right.
Um, but yeah, it's hopefully can go into some form of remission at some point. A lot of people do see it happen, but it's not a curable thing. It's not something that medical professionals know a lot about.
Mhm.
Um, they just scratch their head and say, good luck, have fun.
Wow.
Yeah, but so with my initial injury, when the ball popped out, I had done x-rays, CAT scans, MRIs, and there was no injury. It's just a quick little pop in and out, but it was like if you pop or crack your joint more
Mhm.
so. There's no breaks, no tears, nothing like that. It was just that, and it triggered something that
Hmm.
panicked my body.
Okay. So the X-rays, the MRIs, nothing is showing. So this is back in 2016. Nothing is showing anything out of place. The doctors are saying what? Like it's okay, or how did the diagnosis come about?
Yeah. Um, Most doctors said there's nothing wrong with you. It's in your head.
Hmm.
I got very used to hearing that. And with the severity of the pain, one of the only ways my body knows how to react to it is it tremors. So
Hmm.
it just looks like I'm starting to have a seizure out of nowhere.
Wow.
And they would look at me and say, you're faking that. There's nothing wrong with you. Um, And eventually I did a thermogram. So they scanned my body for heat,
Hmm.
and I had zero heat in my foot. It was black on the thermograms, whereas my
Whoa.
other one was red, yellow, white. It was black and blue. So there's loss of heat and no production of it, basically. So that started to make them realize that something actually was wrong, but they still didn't really know. I think one doctor finally mentioned, like, I think this is what it is. And then we had to find a whole new team of specialists to actually deal with it.
And how long was that between your ball of foot popping out, that pain that was so severe that it was causing your body to tremor, until that thermograph happened?
I think it was 2 or 3 years, probably. It might have been a little shorter than
Whoa.
that. I could pull up the picture of it, possibly. See the date on it, maybe. Oh, it was actually a year afterwards, is when I got the thermograms. Um, but it still took a long time for them to suggest going into the extreme types of things I started doing.
A
They
year
had
is
me,
a long time.
yeah, it was a long time for them to say, nothing's wrong, just go on with life.
What was it like for you to receive that? You know, you're in high levels of pain. They don't know it yet, but there's no heat in that part of your body. you're in so much pain that you're tremoring, and the doctors are saying you're making it up. There's nothing wrong. Like, what was it like to receive that feedback?
Oh, it was awful. I mean, so they could touch my foot and they could feel it felt like an ice pack.
Mm,
To this day, it still is cold. I have to wear a heated sock pretty much at all times.
okay.
Um, but yeah, they were like, well, there may be something wrong with you, but not to the severity of the way you're acting. And yeah, it sucked to be told you're faking it and think that I would just have to live with nobody believing me for the rest of it.
Was there anyone on your team, in your family, anyone close to you that did believe you?
My whole family believed it. They knew something was wrong. They didn't know what it was, but they could tell something was wrong. There was no guessing of, well, this may or may not be. And my mom was a huge advocate for me. At one point, I lost the ability to drive just because the tremoring was so
Right.
severe. I didn't feel safe or comfortable being behind a wheel. She took me daily almost to doctor's appointments and therapies and anything possible to help me try to get better in some way, shape, or form. And she did that for years, just dedicated herself to it entirely.
Wow. So, what were some of so you get the thermograph, they decide, okay, actually, there is something happening here, even though they were able to touch your leg and feel that it was like an ice pack and is to this day. And so, what was the next steps? Like, what were some of the therapies or interventions that they recommended once you got to see a specialist?
Um, so I did a lot of laser therapies. We tried both the hot and cold ones, and because of the loss of heat in my foot, I couldn't tolerate the cold ones, but we
Mm,
did do the heated lasers quite a bit. Um, Warm pool or heated pool therapies was a wonderful thing to do. It reduced the weight on my body so I could actually move around
mm,
and keep some form of mobility. Um, but getting out of the pool was always just awful.
mm.
That temperature change flared me up miserably every time. Um, I did a lot of acupuncture, chiropractic, um, massage therapy to a point, um, a whole bunch of random stuff. And then we started using stimulators to try to just activate different points around the area. Um, and that led to a different specialist and my stimulator currently, which I have a spinal cord stimulator implanted in my hip. And then they sewed that onto my sciatic nerve. So I just shock my leg and my foot constantly.
What?
Yeah.
Is it like you just like sit there patting your side all day long? How often do you do it?
So it's a battery that they installed into my hip, and then they ran wires through my leg and sewed the leads onto my nerve. And then
Whoa.
I have a remote that just changes the program or the varying difference of it. And I can just adjust it to send more or less shock throughout the day. Um, yeah,
How
it's a
long have you
bizarre
had
one.
that?
4 years, I think, maybe 5 years. It's been a little while.
So before the ketamine, right?
Yeah, yeah. Before ketamine started, I got that. Um, I had really good success with it. It just wasn't enough to
Mm.
really get me back to what I wanted to be doing, but it gave great relief. And to this day, I'm very glad I did it.
Sounds like a very invasive surgery to get into your sciatica and weave that down into the sort of down into your leg.
Yeah, I've got some nasty scars from it, which you wouldn't think they'd be that bad with this technology, but yeah, I've got a chunk of metal that kind of bulges out of my hip, and you can feel the wires running throughout my leg. It's a little gnarly.
That's wild. Okay, so putting the puzzle pieces together, the injury happens, the incident happens in September of 2016. Your ball of foot falls out. It takes about a year before the doctors even recognize that there's actually something wrong with you. And then you go on a journey to try different therapies. You said massage, acupuncture, all different sorts of things, right? And then the stimulator, you find the stimulator, and that helps. And so I'm curious, what was your life like before September of 2016? And then what is it like throughout this whole time? You mentioned the tremors were so severe, you didn't feel comfortable driving. So your mom was such a big advocate and support for you. So she would drive you places, which is so helpful. And still, I would love to know a little bit about your life before, September 2016 and what it was like throughout those years.
Yeah, I was a really active person growing up. I had manual labor jobs pretty much my whole life up to that point. Went camping, boating, swimming, all that stuff. I was a very active person, and then that happened, and I lost all of it. If I wasn't at an appointment, I was mostly bedridden. I did not leave my room. I was miserable all the time. Just hated everything about it. Couldn't do anything. Um, Nowadays, with the combination of the stimulator and the ketamine, pretty much, I work 3 to 4 days in general contracting, construction, and then I do a day or two of dental hygiene assisting a
Okay, you're
week.
getting ahead of the
So,
story though, because we do want to hear that part of the story, but we're going in order
sorry,
here. No, you're great. You're great. So you go from being because you live in Colorado.
I do.
So
Yep.
it's a very outdoorsy state and it's beautiful. I mean, that's literally the namesake, right? It's a colorful state and there's mountains, there's so much there. So you go from being active and fishing and being outdoors to now you're pretty much locked indoors, pretty much bedridden, which is yeah, there's just so much. It's just a shock to the system to go from being mostly outside to almost totally inside. Um, and you're trying all these different therapies, and I'm curious, what was it like learning about a new therapy where you're like, okay, this is the one, and then would there be like that uptick in hope, and then that kind of like rolling down the hill of like, oh, that wasn't it.
Not really. For a lot of the therapies, I knew they were just something to hopefully keep a little bit of movement and try to reduce the atrophy in my leg
Mm,
and the rest of my body. Um, I didn't really think any of them were going to be like the catch all go to or anything, though. Just the way that medical professionals were acting around it or didn't even acknowledge that it existed. It
mm,
just gave me no hope for it, really. And then as I got towards the more specific professionals that knew that part of it, I began to get a little more hope, and they gave me reason to. They would say like, well, this can do this for some people, but they wouldn't try to oversell it, but they wouldn't undersell it either, which
got it.
was what was needed for that type of progression. And you would almost go into it thinking, well, it's going to do nothing. And then you'd get the smallest bit of positive reaction from it. And you're like, oh, that's cool. I need to do that again. And so then you start to play around with it and figure out what really works for you and what you need to do with it.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad they were able to temper your expectations and kind of lead with that low expectation. And so then so you got the stimulator and then when did you hear about ketamine and how did you hear about ketamine and I want to hear that story.
I think around the time I had gotten the stimulator, I had used ketamine troches and a nasal spray a few times and had some pretty good, very short but good relief from it, and didn't think much of it at that point. But then eventually I had gone to a pain specialist who was like, well, yeah, ketamine does work for that type of stuff because of, it acts on certain receptors in your brain and varying factors behind it. And more so went into why it works, and then was like, well, if you see relief with the things like the troche, where it's not as extreme,
Mhm.
then you could try the more suitable versions of it and then see how they affect you. And then when I got my stimulator implant, they gave me ketamine as part of my anesthetic to
Right.
knock me out. And that kind of made me realize that it did have some benefits to it. Um, I went and talked to a guy who specialized in the infusions and almost started them with him. I don't remember exactly what happened, but he ended up closing down his clinic.
Okay.
And in the building, in the same building, there was another ketamine nurse, and that was Kristen. So I ended up finding her through that building shutting down, and I've been with her ever since.
Which is a real blessing too, because when I had her on the show, we were talking about that the protocol that she offers specifically for this is different than the protocol that than most people are offering for other things.
Yeah, and I'm not sure exactly which protocol she's referring to, but I do know that like the pain protocol, the one that I receive, it's roughly a 4-hour treatment of an IV drip, whereas the depression protocols, I think, are 45 minutes to an hour.
Exactly.
Um, so it's a lot more in depth, and you experience a lot more through it, but it's obviously wear and tear on both yourself and whoever is watching over you.
Right.
Like Kristen or another nurse is in the room with me at all times throughout the process and babysits me fully to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So it's a lot towards everyone for it, especially with 4 or 5 hours going on.
For sure. And the protocol that she was talking about was the full reset. So doing that protocol that you're talking about now, but I think doing it not in a row, but 10 days, right?
Yeah, so the first infusion that I did, or the first time I did the infusion with her, it was a 10-day protocol to get me started on it.
Yeah.
Um, and it was Monday to Friday, every day, went in and did it for the 4 hours. And then I think I had the weekend off. And then I went and did it for a full other week, Monday to Friday. Um, and after that period, that got me to the point where I think I started it doing once every month after that for a day. Um, and it's just, I've been slowly or expanding that time. I'm up to almost 2 months between my infusions now with it.
That's great. I'm curious with the first time that you went in for that 10-day protocol, um, what kind of state were you in, sort of mentally, physically, emotionally, going into that protocol, and how quickly did you see the benefits?
I was drained completely. I had no energy left in me at that point. I was pretty much crawling on my crutches, just trying to get through the day. And I think on day 4 or 5, they have a video of me walking out of the facility.
Wow.
So it was mind blowing.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how long, cuz you said you had a cast, you were immobilized, you were bedridden. How long had it been since you had walked?
So I very, very lightly would limp around, from like my bed to get to the bathroom or whatever. But aside from that, it was about 6 years that I wasn't walking
Wow.
properly. Yeah.
Wow, that's a really long time. So then on day 4 or 5, you walk. Is it one of those things where you just kinda, like, forgot and you just got up and started walking and you're like and people were like, "Hey, you're walking." And you're like, "I'm doing what?"
No, they tried to give me my crutches, and I'd stood up out of the chair once they unplugged me, and they tried to give them to me. I was like, no, I don't want them right now. And just started leaving.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just like I don't want them. I don't need them. I don't. Let's keep going. Just do this.
And that was day 4 or 5 of these long 4-ish hour infusions. So it's not like just for anyone listening, you're not in your full faculties, right? You're not, like, totally coherent necessarily after something like that.
No. So during it, I'm not coherent at all. I've been to different realms, different universes, things that I can't really explain at all. Um, I've received healing on different planets, which was bizarre to me. But yeah, coming back from those, you're very drunk, hungover, tired. Um, they put a lot of Benadryl in your system at the same time, so that's fighting against you. So you're not really here for a few hours or a day or two after the infusion,
Oh,
but
wow.
you know where you're at. And I was looking around like, this is time to go. Let's do it.
So you walk out of the clinic, have you on day 4, maybe 5, and have you used crutches since?
No, um, I started using a cane for about a year and a half, 2 years after that. And then after one of my infusions, same thing. I just put the cane away, and it's sitting downstairs in my basement. Um, I still have handicap parking in case I ever need to use that, but I don't. I'd rather park at the back of the parking lot than use the sticker. So yeah, cane stays away, handicap parking stays away. I don't even think I have the crutches anymore. I'm pretty sure I gave them to someone else.
Wow.
Um, yeah, no looking back at it.
So, I mean, that was just halfway through that you were able to, right? Because it's a 10-day protocol. It's day 4, maybe 5 that you get up and you're like, no, I don't need the crutches. Let's go. No looking back. We're just moving forward. And then what happened for the next 5 days? Did it continuously get better?
Yeah, the pain would just slowly get less and less, and for that period of time, I was almost just drunk for the entire 10 days. Um, and then afterwards, I was just like, oh, I feel okay. Like I can do stuff I couldn't do before. I can walk to my car. I can drive down the street. Um, just start doing things that I couldn't do.
Well, you couldn't do since September of 2016, but did you have a memory of those things, or did you have to kind of remind yourself of like, "Oh, yeah, I don't need crutches anymore. Oh, yeah, I can drive now." What was that
It
like?
was hard to remember that you could actually do stuff. Even to this day, I'm like, I can do that now. I can just go. I can walk around the park if I want to, and go work an extra few hours if I feel like it. And just yeah, it's hard to remember both that I can do those things now and also that I couldn't do those things for so long.
Yeah, it probably feels like like another life.
A little bit, yeah. It's bizarre.
But I'm also hearing that you go to other planets and receive healing in the ketamine. So, are you willing to
Yeah,
tell us about that?
I can try to. It might sound extremely weird, especially for people who haven't done drugs or experienced anything of the sort, but Yeah, so if you've ever seen like The Matrix, where they wake up and they're in those eggshell chairs and stuff, I've done things like that, and been surrounded by doctors and nurses that are like, okay, you need to do this now, and they do weird things and that I can't explain, but then I come back to this realm, I'm like, huh, that worked. I feel better than I did going there, and I don't know if it's because that's what my body needs, because I know that nobody here can fix it, so I have to go somewhere else to get it fixed, but it works. Those great things.
It's incredible. I mean, yeah, we don't really know the way that the subconscious mind works with, altered states of consciousness, whether it's with psychedelics or dream work or even so many other things like meditation and things like that. Mystical experiences. We know very little about mystical experiences. We do our best to kind of bridge that knowledge with different types of sciences, like quantum physics tries to explain it, but we know enough to know that we don't know.
Yeah,
So
we
we
know that mind over matter is a very real thing, but we don't know why.
Right. And we also know that there are, different realities happening at the same time. We know that everything that you're saying can be corroborated by science, but I'm curious. So is it that you wake up in wherever, surrounded by, are you in human form there or no?
Yeah, I'm myself, but kind of like a different form of myself, usually. But I still have quote unquote complete control of myself. Like I know what I'm doing over there, kind of like you're controlling a dream almost,
Mm.
but I don't actually have control of what's happening there. I go there and they do what they want me to do, and I can do it, but I'm not like having them do it for me.
So they give you instructions that you carry out while you're there in their presence.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay,
And it's only sometimes, I can't control when that happens
for
even.
sure.
I've had some infusions where I've just gone to like a blackout hole and nothing happens, or I'll feel like I was asleep the whole time. And they're like, no, you were awake, you were talking.
Oh, wow.
And I'm like, no, I wasn't. I was asleep, I promise. Like, no, you talked to us the whole 4 hours. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I don't have any control of what happens when it happens, but weird things happen, and
Weird things
sometimes
happen.
they help a lot.
That's incredible too, which also makes me wonder. So there's, in multiple worlds theory, for example, in quantum physics, there's multiple realities happening at the same time. So there's you in a different reality, which makes me think if you in this reality is asleep, maybe you in a different reality doing a psychedelic somewhere else wakes up in your body here, has that conversation while you're just
I've considered things like that so much, and it hurts my brain because there's been times where I've been over in that realm or whatever, and I know that it's time to come back here, but I like shuffle through 20 other states of consciousness before I'm like,
Whoa.
okay, I'm actually back where I need to be now.
Wow.
And then sometimes it takes me back away. And it's like, oh, I guess I wasn't ready to leave yet.
Are you is Have you revisited the same places multiple times, or is it always somewhere new, or is it always the same place?
I've visited one place a few times, that healing bed chair world. I've gone there a few times and have great experiences every time I go there. I've had a time or two where um, I basically got taken up into the clouds like I was a drone and just flew over the world and watched all of the scapes of land. Because usually I have, like YouTube flyovers playing in the background. And yeah, I just got taken into one of those one time. Loved it. Uh, Other times haven't been as great, I've gone into like the black hole where I have no control over anything, or kind of like a psych ward almost, the padded rooms and stuff, except the room caves in on me. Terrifying, terrifying experience. And yeah, I freak out in both realms, both over there, and the nurses watching me can tell that I'm not having a good time as well.
Wow. Do you have, I know you said it's weird, you don't understand it, and it is one of my favorite words from working in the psychedelic space is ineffable, which is cannot be described with words. There's a word to say you can't describe it with words. So I know that psychedelic experiences are ineffable, and I know even the language that you're piecing together here, as descriptive and amazing as it is, it can only scratch the surface of, I mean, you're literally waking up in a different world, right?
Right. Yeah.
So we can only touch like even just like touch it a little bit. But do you have your own theories about some of this travel that you do while you're in these infusions?
Some of it I'd like to think is like that alternate dimension, alternate theory or universes. You need to, or you unplug from one and you can just plug into another one. You just jump around from point to point. But I think a lot of it is my mind just knows what it needs sometimes, and if it can't be received here, it's going to take me to where I can get that help and get the healing that I need to get.
How cool. I had a question and it just totally left my mind. Oh, have you ever seen the OA on Netflix?
That sounds extremely familiar. I believe I at least watched a season or two of it.
Okay, so in it, there's only 2 seasons of it, and then they discontinued it. But it's talking, it uses quantum physics to talk about what you're talking about, but in a different way. So it's like the theories of quantum physics of time and space travel, but instead of using psychedelics, they're using near-death experiences. So through near-death experiences, they're traveling to different realities to obtain different information, have different experiences, whatever it is.
Oh,
And it sounds a lot like what you're talking about. So it might resonate, it might give you
that's
more.
wild.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
again,
that's very interesting.
our modern science is beginning to catch up with it. I mean, I remember very in the past like 2 years, I heard that mathematically there's absolutely no way to corroborate that this isn't a simulation, right? Like this could be someone's dream and they might wake up and we there's no way to know what reality is. It's stuff that I've studied with, my hypnosis background of there really is no objective reality, but to see and experience science, right? Evidence-based science saying we have no evidence is pretty impressive.
We know enough to know we know nothing.
We're getting there. I know, like 200, just over 200 years after Newton had that apple fall in his head and we thought we knew everything. Now we're realizing we know a lot less than we thought we did. Okay, that's so interesting. I haven't had anyone share about time and space travel on here, so thank you for sharing that.
Happy
I
to.
Yeah, I've experienced it myself with not quite as much as waking up in different planets in that way, but in definitely touching down and experiencing different things. So it's definitely possible. We have no idea what's possible with the subconscious mind. We're really it's like the depths of the ocean. We really don't know what's down there. Uh, so okay, so back to planet Earth, where it's infusion 4 or 5. You get up, you walk away, and then it continuously gets better and better and better. And then at what point do you decide, okay, yeah, I can drive a car? Now you have 2 jobs, right? So, like, at what point do you say, okay, you know what? Actually, like that is a chapter, and I can like turn the page, close that part of the chapter where I was bedridden for 6 years, and move on to the next thing.
Um, I think it was maybe a month or two, maybe three after my first infusion, where it's like, yeah, I need to get a job again. I need to start working and try to be productive with my life again. Um, and I started as a part-time line chef, line cook, whatever you want to call it, at a little wine bar just up the street from me. And I worked weekends and at that time I was still using a cane just to help me get around when I wanted to, um, or to keep people away from me. I do not trust people at all. So anything I can do to keep them 10 feet away is perfect for me. Um, I did that for about 2.5 years. Um, and then decided I wanted to change it up, get back into more of the things I enjoy even more. And my sister had just renovated her house at the time and had a great general contractor with her, and she bugged him for months afterwards to give me a chance, and he finally did.
Nice.
And then, yeah, I've been doing that for about a year and a half now. And in the middle of doing the general contracting, I picked up the dental hygiene assisting job as well. So I just keep going at it.
So, but I mean, line cook, you were on your feet that entire shift. That was unimaginable just a month or two prior.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the jobs I have really is just walking and standing and not a desk job, which is what people were telling me to expect to work for the rest of my life, if anything. It's like,
Right.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to work a desk job. So
Good on
I didn't.
you. Yeah, good on you for that. So you have all of these jobs. Oh, that was my question. The cane. So you would use the cane to just like if someone got too close to your leg because you were in so much pain. Is that am I inferring correctly that you would just hit people with the cane if they got too close to your bum leg?
Luckily, I didn't have to hit anyone with it, but I've noticed that if you have crutches or a cane, people will take a step to the side for you.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're just walking normally, they'll bump into you. Yeah, they don't
Right.
care. So it was a safety precaution. I'd rather people step away from me than step on me.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just did it to protect myself a little bit, have a little extra comfort zone.
Good. I'm glad you did that. So then you have the general contracting job, the dental hygienist assistant job. So now your quality of life, talk about that a little bit.
It's a lot better than it was. Yeah, I do what I want now pretty much. I've gone snowshoeing over the winter, which I didn't think I would ever touch snow again. So now I'm looking forward to maybe putting some snowboarding boots back on one day and go down the mountain.
That's incredible. And then you do so the infusions you mentioned at the very beginning, which that your the infusions you do them now. You said you split them out. You used to do monthly. Now you do every like 2-ish months, I think is what you said. And then, but you still have a level of pain, but it's manageable. So what is the level of pain that you have now?
Yeah, the, right now I run around with, constant 2 or 3 pain, usually, unless it's right after my infusion. I'm pretty pain free for a week or two afterwards, and then it starts to come back on a little bit, but compared to what it was, it's nothing. I can manage. It's tolerable. It's not fun, but
Right.
I can deal with it a lot better than I could deal with what I was going through every day before. And yeah, even on my worst days now, it's like, well, you did shit like this for years. This is nothing. You sleep it off. You'll be fine.
That's incredible. What a success story.
Yeah, it was a lot of time and a lot of not giving up with a little bit of giving up, but you can't stop and it'll get there. It does.
And for our audience, how have you thanked your mother for all of those years of driving you to all those appointments?
In nowhere near enough ways. I try to spend time with them whenever they're around and do whatever I can for them, but they still are my parents and would rather help me out than accept a little help from me. So we juggle it back and forth and just keep helping each other.
That's beautiful. So, you mentioned it was many years of, trying things that worked and giving up, but not ever actually giving up. If someone's listening to this episode and they're either like fresh or in the throes of their own diagnosis, their own high levels of pain, what would you tell them?
Find a good doctor. Find people that will help you, support you, and believe you when you need to be believed. And yeah, don't give up. You'll find somebody, you'll find the way, whatever it ends up being. Um, just don't expect it to come right away.
Yeah. And just for anyone listening, because when I first heard your story, just the like before I knew you or anything, I imagined you were much older. So you were really young when this happened.
Yeah, so I'm 30 right now. I was 22, I think, 21 when my injury happened. Just started drinking legally and then got my whole life changed and flipped upside down.
But now you're 30, so now you get to experience a whole decade without all of that extreme pain.
I do. Yep, I can just keep going at it and live a whole new life, a better one.
Amazing. Anything else that you want to say before we wrap up today?
Um, don't give up. Things suck sometimes, but it gets better.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Kevin, for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing so honestly and openly and vulnerably about even some of the things that you experience in the ketamine infusions themselves. That's always fun to listen to for me. And yeah, and thanks for being on.
Of course, thank you for having me. I'm glad I got to be here.
Yay, me too. All right. How cool was that episode with Kevin? Oh my gosh, he was such a joy to connect with. And I loved how he talked about these supernatural experiences of going to other planets, to other dimensions, whatever it is, to receive healing. And I thought it was so sweet how he said, his body or his soul, like whatever it is, knows that he can't get the healing he needs on this planet. And he needs to go to this other planet, dimension, whatever your belief system around this is. Now we're getting into some woo, we're getting into some out there topics, and that is like so exciting for me because when we talk about ketamine connections, we talk about the other things that ketamine connects you with, and some of that is the ineffable, the unexplainable, the things that don't make sense. And I love that Kevin brought that to the conversation here on the show. As soon as we wrapped up the episode, I realized I had some questions for Kevin. So I shot him an email. He was so gracious with his response. My questions centered around two main topics. One, and I have my notes here just so I can read from them a little bit so I'm not going too far off of his words. My first question was, well, Kevin, what was your belief around aliens and all of the supernatural stuff before ketamine, right? Because I just feel like someone who's so connected to nature, Kevin has this grounding presence, and I thought he doesn't seem like someone who would be into that supernatural stuff going into it. So I was just curious of what his belief system was before. And Kevin said that growing up, he had this dual experience. So, on the one hand, he went to church, and church taught him about God. What else did he say? He believed in a higher power, right? And he also had the experience of playing a lot of video games. And what the video games taught him was the power or the existence of a simulation. So, what he says about that is that he had this dual experience of, yes, I believe in a higher power. I don't know what it is. I know, but I also know that the things are out there, but I don't know what they are. He also so eloquently said that, trying to talk about this stuff is something that he can go on for hours and hours about, but he wanted to leave it there, that he did have some belief, but not like a firm one way or the other, and that he had this well-rounded belief system around the supernatural. Now, the next question that I had was, how did you know that these were friendly entities? Because a lot of the time when we see aliens and entities in movies, I know a lot of the stuff I I know that a lot of the stuff that I grew up with was showing these otherworldly beings in a negative way, right? That they're invaders, that they're colonizers, that they're, thieves and like pillagers and things like that. And so I thought, well, Kevin, how did you know that they wanted to help you, right? And that is the power of psychedelic medicine, is that it's a very visceral medicine. And so you have a feeling and a knowing that supersedes thinking. And so Kevin said that when he comes into those situations, they're very comforting scenarios. He says that whatever those beings are that he encounters in those state, that they're helping him, that they're talking to him the whole time, and that they tell him exactly what they're helping they tell him exactly what's happening in a way that helps him transition from one thing to the next. So yeah, there is this knowing. He said that he's also had experiences that were not good, things that were more like solitary confinement. Sometimes there are experiences that he cannot control. And so there's other things that he needs to use to calm down, to surrender to the experience, because there's nothing he can do. There's no control over it. And so he's just reaffirmed that not every infusion goes great. Some don't work as well as others, but it's a process and healing takes time. Kevin VanHeesch, people, what a gem, what a generous soul to share his experience, to share these other topics with us. And if you have a moment, just send him some healing vibes, because he is very much still on his healing journey, as we all are. All right, that is all I have for you today on Ketamine Connections. Thank you so much for being here, and see you next time.